I need to name names.
Yeah.
I wouldn't know that. I've seen a few pictures for yesterday. Cheers, Willie, for that. Fucking hell, especially the one lying in front of that was the one, wasn't it? Yeah.
Colin, former Rangers captain player,
Yeah.
what do you feel about what's going on at the moment at Ibrox?
Well, first of all, I'd like to. I was delighted that Barry has been appointed and the guys that's with him, because they're friends. You know, I played with them all apart from Alan. I tried to sign Alan on loan actually at Blackpool, which he'd more or less done the deal, but the chairman of Blackpool at the time reneged. So I didn't get Alan down to Blackpool for a loan period. But the Dodgy and V. McCann and Barry, and they're good lads. I played with them for Scotland and I played for them with Rangers as well as. And I was delighted that they've an opportunity to make things better for the football club.
Do you think they can? And how do they
Yeah, I
do
mean,
it?
I watched the game against Kilmarnock and even in that 90-minute period, you've seen things not go well initially. And Barry makes his decisions and you get a result out of that, and towards the end, you know, you were happier as a Rangers man, as a Rangers fan, you're happier. I'd seen the game on the Wednesday. I didn't see the game on the Saturday against Motherwell, and probably the last thing I thought was the same would happen, to go 2-0 down again. But unfortunately they did, and you know, he's got a job. Barry's got a job on his hands, but I'm sure that between the lads, between them all, they'll make sure they'll put the club hopefully in a better place and a better situation than what they've entered into.
The next 3 games are 2 against Fenerbahce,
Yeah,
and then Celtic.
yeah.
Does Barry need?
No hiding place.
No, there is no hiding place. Does he?
That's
need-
part of being part of Glasgow Rangers Football Club. So that's how it works. You know, you've got to understand that. You know, when I came back from England in '98 and signed for Rangers, that I used to try and describe the fact that when I was playing in England in the Premiership week in, week out, that I was in a boxing match. So physically, when you come out of that game after your 90 minutes, you knew you'd been in a game. But when you come up to Rangers, and with the exception of 10 or 20% of the games that you play in, the other 80% you're in charge, even away from home. You've got majority possession of the ball. You're in charge, and psychologically you've got to be at it all the time. And that was probably the main difference I found, was that psychologically you've got to be absolutely on top form. Physically it wasn't as draining, it wasn't as demanding, but psychologically you've got to be at that all the time, because there's only space for one winner.
Do you think that's been missing then from the dressing room?
Well,
In
I think
terms of
that's
the
been
players
that's been part of it. I think I would say, is it because you've got a foreign manager or somebody that maybe thinks that the European thing's a way of salvaging the fact that they might not be able to challenge Celtic at the minute? Well, that is one of the ways, you know, to be better and to do well in Europe. But same as you've got the 2 League Cup and the Scottish Cup as well as, and obviously, you know, out of everything sort of thing. So we've got the European thing, which puts me even more pressure on everybody involved to do well in this next 2 games. Fenerbahce, yeah.
Colin, there's talk of a potential takeover happening in the summer. Is that the sort of positivity you think Rangers need? What do you think that
I think it's another. If it's quicker that's sorted out, the better. I would say for everybody. I don't really think it affects a footballer crossing the white line on a Saturday to play a game of football, which they're paid to do, and I don't think that really is got a direct effect. But it's part of the accumulation of how things could be better for the football club, if that's addressed.
The defeat in Saturday was the 3rd in a row at Ibrox.
Yeah.
That was unfortunate.
Well, that'll be preying on the players now. That's the players have. So, for example, I was saying to the guys through there earlier, when I was at Blackburn Rovers and Enningberg got relieved of his duties and Eric Black took over, Eric addressed the team before the next game, and he said that, you know, lads, listen, when you cross that white line, There's nothing the coaches or anybody can do. I think you're talking about 10, 15, maybe 18% of what is actually part of the build-up to a game of football. That is what we can put into preparation for the game. But as soon as you cross that white line, that's where you guys take over, and that's pretty accurate. You know, that's as true as it comes. So for a team that's been beaten 3 times at Ibrox, then the pressure, of course, psychologically builds up on each individual player, because they'll be thinking the next game, the next game, the next game, and they've got to be better. They've got to win the next game, and that's how it is.
I think the players you played alongside, Colin, compared to the squad just now, I'm just saying, do you see any leaders in this group?
Well, I think it's different eras, different.
Yeah.
I mean, different eras. The game's changed a little bit as well as. I mean, Christ. I mean, I don't think some of the tackles that I was able to put in back in the day would be allowed.
But just in terms of guys that need to get you over the line in a game, do Rangers have that?
Well, you hope that they have that. You hope that they've got a side to them, that at some point things, you know, as a group of lads earlier on, Stevie and Big Alan and Neil as well, talking about what's needed and going through bad patches, etc. That the time it takes for, if there's changes made, changes have been made, and changes have been made at Ibrox. But things won't continue like that all the time. And we were talking about this before. We were talking, for example, talking about Hibs and David Gray and how close that was. You know, now I've seen the game come through again. It was at Aberdeen. They drew 3-3, and there was about 3 goals in the last 5 or 8 minutes or something like that. But it must have been close. But then they've gone on, and my partner's from Edinburgh. She's a Hibs fan. So, and I've said to her the whole time, I said, they'll come good. They'll come good. Liam Craig's there as well, who played with my son at St Johnstone, Callum. So, you know, I've got a bit of a favour towards Hibs. And I mean, I'm not talking about the game on Sunday, but Hibs might just run Celtic close, you know, in the game itself. But yeah, you think that the time will come where it can't continue, and that happened, for example, with David Gray at Hibs. Obviously, there's a change made at Rangers, but it works in cycles. That's what the lads were talking about earlier on. It works in cycles, and things don't actually stay the same for as long as you would expect them to.
Sorry, Colin, you touched on it. Is it one of the major concerns that the result on Saturday for Rangers came after a comeback like they did?
Yeah, I was surprised that. So when I picked up the result on Saturday that we'd gone down 2-0 again against Motherwell, I'm thinking, wow, that's happened twice in a row. So I'm sure the guys will be addressing that for the night, for Thursday night especially.
How do you view that match then, Fenerbahce?
Well, if anything, I would think there'd be a bit of less pressure on the players, because Europe's been a decent hunting ground for the football club in relation to results and performances. But that said, there's possibly a bit more pressure being put on them because of what's happened domestically. And that's, you know, this is something that we've got to make sure that we don't lose too far, because it's a 2-legged affair. You know, we don't go too far back for the next game.
Is that just to try and stay in the tie?
Well, you need to stay in the tie. I mean, away from home, you know. But and don't get me wrong, I'm sure the atmosphere in relation to Saturday against Motherwell, in relation to the game against Fenerbahce at home, atmosphere will be totally different. It'll be totally different, because every fan that will be in that stadium, every fan that is in that stadium anyway, will be behind the football club, Rangers. But that night against Fenerbahce at home, every fan will be, you know, they'll be up and up for it. And the fans, and then that'll get the team as well as, and everything else that goes with it. It'll just move everything forward, I would think.
What about a challenge for Barry going up against Jose Mourinho? How do you expect he'll handle that?
Listen, I was delighted for Barry to get the position, and for the lads, as I said earlier, and I wish them all the luck in the world, and I hope I really hope they get to improve things. But it's an experience for him. It'll be an experience, a great experience for him to come up against somebody of that ilk, You know, I mean, as modern managers, you talk about all the different managers. You know, he's got to be up there in the top, what, 5, 6, 7 managers in the world of being as successful as they've been. He's a character as well as. He's going through his little bit of issues at the minute in relation to the Galatasaray comments, etc. But, you know, it'd be interesting. It'd be good. And it'd be great. It'd be great for Barry and it'd be great for Rangers if they can go there and get something. It'd be brilliant.
You know what Barry's like? How hurt will he be at just where Rangers are at a club at the moment, and how...
Yeah, he's a Rangers man. He's a Rangers man through and through. You know, I mean, I thought he came to England and played for Blackburn and he spent a little bit of time elsewhere. He's a Rangers man through and through. And, you know, I wish him and I hope that he gets that, because you need a bit of luck as well as. Just talking about players going over the white line, you know, how it's taken away from the coaches and the coaching staff and everything else. It's purely and simply up to the players. Barry can only relay his experience and his instructions to the players before that happens to them.
Colin, you were talking about that mental strength it takes to play for Rangers. Once that maybe starts to slip away, how hard is it to get that back?
Well, fortunately, I didn't personally have to worry too much about it because Dick got rid of me, and it was as simple as that. So I ended up at Coventry, which was just part of the development of my career latterly. But I think that's going to be something that for any player is going to be difficult to cope with. I think the psychological thing is going to be harder than the physical thing. But then again, I was at the age of 33 when I signed for Rangers, and I was 34 and a bit when I left them. And I didn't stop playing until I was about 37, something like that. And I realised that the legs weren't what they were maybe 4 or 5 years prior. Psychologically, you can try and make up that ground. You've always got, because even now, although I played 90 minutes, well, I played an hour yesterday in a charity game, I still think I can do what I did 40 years ago. So that's how it works psychologically, but it's not easy. It can't be easy for anyone to have, when you lose your way a wee bit, to regain that. But I suppose the art is in trying to regain, to get back to a situation or a position where you can cope and deal with the psychological issues that you get in a game of football.
Do you think it maybe takes that strong voice then to come in and maybe tell some guys this is it?
Well, Barry is that voice. Barry will be that voice because he'll be talking from a footballing point of view, and also from an experience point of view. That what he's done, you know, his accolades that he's achieved with Rangers as well as a player. So hopefully the players will take that on board.
Colin, can I ask you about Clinton Isiala? Obviously, I've been a former central defender yourself. He's obviously come into the team at a difficult stage this season. Had a bit of criticism the last couple of games. What would your kind of advice be to him? Obviously, he's still quite raw, got a lot to learn, but what would your advice be to him at this stage in his career?
Well, it's what's the word I'm trying to explain. It's a fishbowl that, you know, everybody's looking at, everybody's analysing, everybody more or less strips you down. And with the modern day of football, with social media and so many phones and cameras being at games, you can pick out the minutest of details in relation to how a player plays a game of football. What he's really got to do is just go back to basics. You know, I mean, as raw and as inexperienced as he is, you've still got to work on your basics. You know, I mean, as I said earlier, I played my wee game yesterday for Alzheimer's, and I just go back to basics. You know, if I pass the ball to one in my team, then, you know, we're going to continue progressing up the park sort of thing. So, but you've just got to go back to basics and keep things simple. Certainly as a defender, because the game comes to you anyway. You know, as defenders, or certainly maybe it's not the fullbacks, so the fullbacks will engage and get further forward, but certainly central defenders, the game really comes to you because your opponent that you're playing against you need to mark and shadow every move that he makes in relation to where the ball is. So, okay, he's not going to score if he's not got the ball, but in relation to where the ball is, then you've got to make sure you're in a position to deal with that.
So can I just ask you a wee bit about Dundee?
Yeah.
About a tough-
That's why I'm here. A Dundee question, there you go.
a tough spell recently.
Yeah.
Stopped the losing running.
Yeah.
Still in the mix. But how big could a result the weekend be just for the whole season? I think it's a club that's kind of been starved of Scottish Cup success.
Yeah.
For a long time as well.
It's important. Yeah, it's very important. I mean, Tony played in the game yesterday, Tony Dockery, and I played for the rest of the world, actually, for Scotland against the rest of the world. And there was a penalty given to Scotland, and Tony took the penalty. So as I was going past him, I said to him, you to miss the penalty and Dundee to stay up, or Dundee to go down and you score the penalty. And he laughed. He had a good laugh about it. He scored a penalty, by the way. So we went in at half time 1-1. But yeah, I mean, the thing about, and it's maybe this season in the Premiership in England is a bad example in relation to how Man City have been so strong over the last 6-7 years in the Premiership. But the rest of the leagues, things quickly turn round. In the SPL, I think for the clubs that are the top two, more or less, things can quickly turn round. And I thought, last time I'd looked, I think Dundee were doing really quite well. And the next thing you're looking at it and you're thinking, right, second bottom. And St Johnstone played them at the weekend. I know that wasn't a bad result at home to St Johnstone, because then it still keeps that little gap between the two football clubs. But I think a good result on Friday night for Dundee would help them greatly. I mean, it would help Hearts as well, as of course. But I think for Dundee's point of view, they're back in that situation, and they need a result of some sort. And against Hearts, at Hearts, that would be a great step forward in moving things, getting better for them.
One last one on Rangers. Do you think how the team does between now and the end of the season could have a bearing on whether Barry's in the picture for the job at all, long term?
I don't know. Obviously, we want everything to be better than what it's been, and I think that's all that maybe. I mean, I don't know what the agreement is between Barry and powers that be, but I think just to move things forward and for things to get better is as much as everybody would want that's associated with Rangers, that supports Rangers. They just want things to get better. And if we can continue the run in Europe, obviously, that would be brilliant. That would be great. Whether that's got a bearing on Barry remaining there, I couldn't really answer that question.
You mentioned the atmosphere at Ibrox.
Yeah. Oh, the next game.
Some atmosphere in Turkey.
Yeah. But I mean, even when you read some of the comments from ex-players, coaches, and managers now, who they've found that the atmosphere at Rangers is as great as it's ever been to any football matches they've been to. You've got to hand it to them. They're not saying it for any old reason. They're saying it because that's true. So Fenerbahce in Turkey will be a little bit different, but at the same time, they've got to come back to Ibrox, and as I said earlier, the atmosphere from Saturday against Motherwell will be a whole lot different in that second leg against Fenerbahce at Ibrox.
Brilliant.
Spot on, thank you.